Hi, I'm Michelle Chalfant, psychotherapist, holistic life coach, and human just like you, learning to navigate life's challenges. With over 25 years experience, I teach people how to get healthy using the adult chair model. The adult chair model is where simple psychology meets grounded spirituality, and it teaches us how to become healthy adults. From anxiety and depression to codependency and relationship issues, you can use the adult chair for just about anything. Each week, I share practical tips, tools, and advice from myself and a wide range of experts on how to get unstuck, how to live authentically, and how to truly love yourself, all while sitting in your adult chair. Welcome to the Adult Chair Podcast. Hello, my friends, and welcome to the Adult Chair Podcast. I am Michelle Chalfant, where we talk all about how to live as healthy adults. Boy, oh boy, you all, what a show I have for you today. You know how I always say, triggers are a gift. And I know when I do my live events, I have people that argue with me. I'm like, let me tell you why triggers are a gift. Because when we are triggered, our unknown, unconscious beliefs about ourselves rise up to the surface, and we get to learn about something that was unknown to us when we are triggered, if we're willing to take a look at that belief. So I say this all the time. I mean, oh my goodness, when we can work on our triggers, it is true freedom. Because what happens is the more you look at and work with your triggers, the more you are set free and the less you are triggered moving forward. It actually helps with emotional regulation. It helps with emotional balance. I mean, there's so many reasons. Like, triggers are one of my favorite things to work with. And this is why when I was having a meeting, this is over the summer, I was speaking in a group with some of my coaches, and one of my coaches, Angela, was sharing about a graduation party that she was throwing for her daughter and how she was hugely triggered. And she explained how she worked through her trigger and how it completely turned her around just by understanding how to work with the trigger. So when I heard her story, I was like, Angela, you've got to share this story in a podcast with me, because what you went through, I can't imagine anyone that would listen to this podcast and not be able to relate. Because all humans are triggered. We're all triggered. Now, what she was triggered over, you may not exactly experience, but you have triggers because you're human. That's just how it is. So what I love is that she will walk you through today on the show, how she walked through this trigger using the adult chair model. She goes right into the child, the adolescent, the adult, and what she did. So she talks to you about the steps for working through a trigger and how she has plugged this model into her own life and how you can too. And she was really surprised by the root of her trigger. Because this is what I say, when you work with triggers, you go find that root. That's where you find the gift. And she walks you through exactly how she did it. So you're going to be able to listen to this show today and then apply it to your own life. So I'm thrilled to have her on. We're going to jump right in with Angela, one of my coaches, sharing her experience all about how she worked through and discovered something very, very, very unique about her trigger. Here we go with Angela. So welcome to the Adult Chair Podcast, Angela Johnson. Hello.
Hello, Michelle. I'm delighted to be here. Thank you for having me.
And I'm delighted that you're delighted to be here.
It's always wonderful to talk to you.
I love when I talk to people, and I talk to, if someone on will message me, let's say on social media, or an email comes in and one of my teammate members are like, you got to see this. It's so beautiful. And they send me most emails, but when I reach back out and I go, hey, would you like to be on the show? It's like deer in headlights. Like, what? Really? On the show? Yeah. So that's why I'm delighted that you're delighted to be here, because I know it can be very scary to be on the show and really be so vulnerable and share your story with the world. So thank you for being here. And I'm glad that that you feel so excited about being here and delighted? Let me use your words, delighted. So
I will not lie. When you asked me, there were some adolescent parts that surfaced. But what I'm excited about is I was able to feel the joy and excitement in a new way because I'm learning how to feel my feelings more.
wow.
So that was very, very fun.
Yeah.
To be able to let the joy land and the excitement land instead of shoving it away.
Oh.
So too for that also. It was a double blessing.
So that is new for you, you're saying?
Oh, yes. That's one of the pillars I am still working very, very diligently on. Feel your things. Mm-hmm. Yes.
I love that. Okay, well, good. Well, I'm glad. And I'm so glad just to have you part of our adult chair family in every way. You've been really doing your work for a long time. A long time. Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Trying.
Yeah, you have been. And I really appreciate that because as I always say, when we work with ourselves and work on, our own healing of our old wounds and all the things, it affects so many people around us. So we're really affecting the planet. So thank you for that work. All right, my darling. Yeah. Yes.
Oh, thank you for putting the work out there. This method works. And I think that's why you wanted me to come on here and talk about my experience with how this work works.
Yeah, I definitely, so here's the backstory. So Angela is one of my coaches and she was on one of our live teachings and you were sharing your story about how you were triggered and how you worked your way through that. And I was so impressed with you. I was like, okay, this is exactly what I'm talking about. And I wanted you to come on and share your story. So let's jump in. Let's hear about your story. So what happened?
Well, I'll give you the high level view first, just so everyone knows where we're going. We had a big party happening at our house on a Saturday, and this story took place the day before on a Friday. It was my daughter. My daughter graduated from high school, and in the Midwest here, we have something called an open house, where you invite just tons of people. You could have 50 people show up. You could have 200 people show up. They could be there for the whole time or 15 minutes. And gauging food and how much food to have is somewhat of a challenge. So we were out in the car doing all sorts of errands, getting ready for the party, picking up all the things, going to all the stores. And I was having trouble managing my stress and anxiety. And what I did instead of managing my own feelings was I started trying to control my partner. So I was micromanaging him. And we're both firstborns. I totally started this. And then he kind of came back. And then, I came back just a little louder. And then he came back. And finally he said, "Why are you micromanaging me?" And our volume had increased with each back and forth until finally it was loud enough that something happened for me. And it was something old. It was a trigger. I sort of popped halfway out of my body as though I were the homecoming queen, like out the sunroof or out the convertible, waving at the crowd. And my actual body was still in the passenger seat. And we're in the left turn lane waiting to turn into the drive-up store. And I knew I had to get out of the car. I was just hearing, "Get out, get out." It was not safe to get out of the car where we were currently. So he turned into the driveway and I said, "Please pull over." And he did. And he said, "Why am I pulling over?" I said, "Because I was in the car." And that's about what it sounded like too. There was probably a swear. And I got out of the car and closed the door and immediately felt relief and embarrassment. And I watched the car creep very slowly, like the 80 meters to the store we were headed to. And I walked very slowly the 80 meters to the store we were headed to, feeling embarrassed and feeling confused, knowing I had been triggered and kind of starting to try to take back my body, take back myself. So I said, "Okay, we always start with breath. Let's just breathe. We're going to walk slowly. We're going to take our time. We're going to breathe." I'm not going to waste time feeling embarrassed or shaming myself about this. Something real happened and I don't understand it yet, but I will. And now we just need to get out of this triggered state. And so I took my time walking to the store. When I walked in, I could see him starting in the first aisle, and I knew he'd wiggle through. I went to like aisle 4. And I had a sense of where he was in the store, and I knew he was getting closer and closer. And when he came down my aisle, I waited for him to get close. And then I said, something happened to me in the car. It was old. I don't understand it yet, but I am so sorry I had that reaction. I don't want to be disconnected to you. I don't want this to take even 5 more minutes away from us being disconnected. And then he said, I'm so sorry I got loud. I don't want to be disconnected from you either. And that was it. The styrofoam plates and all the plastic cutlery were the witness to that moment in this aisle. And that was it until I knew there was something there and I didn't know what it was. And so I scheduled a coaching session and managed to get in the next couple of days, like early the next week, and brought it up, worked through it. And it was old. And it really had nothing to do with that particular moment. And what I also realized is the reason it even started, I realized what it was. The anxiety and stress that I wasn't managing, which got me into kind of at my spouse in the first place. And that happened, like that became clear the very next morning while we're prepping for people to come over. And I'm at the kitchen counter, I'm feeling something come up, and it's almost like it's like a blue sensation coming up out of me. And I knew I couldn't stop it, and I probably shouldn't. I didn't know what it was, but I just needed to let it happen because I'm trying to learn to feel my feelings. And so I felt it. And there I was out of nowhere crying at the kitchen counter. And I let it happen. And after a moment, I realized, oh, Mom's still dead. She's not going to be here today for this big moment. And she's been dead for 4 years, going on 5. And it's weird how that still comes up at all of the big milestone things. And I didn't know that's what I wasn't managing. I didn't know that's the reason I was stressed until the next day. But I've decided I'm really grateful this happened. It gave me practice working with triggers, and it brought, like you said, I mean, triggers are a gift. You say it. I don't want it to be true, but I'm learning that it is. That opportunity gave me the chance. It showed me where there was something going down deep. And because I saw it, and because I made an appointment with a coach, and I kept that appointment, and I showed up to do the work, now that's gone, and that won't trigger me again in the future. And it's just one asteroid in the, the outer space of life. So that's the basic story.
Wow. I was taking crazy notes in case you didn't notice over here. I was like, oh, that was good. Oh, that was good. That was good too. I'm on page 2.
Ooh.
So beautiful. Wow. I don't think that when you were sharing your story with our whole group that you shared that it had, unless I missed it, that the root, I don't remember you saying that you actually worked the trigger. And it had to do with your mother's passing 4 years ago, and that she wasn't there. Yeah.
Yeah, I didn't put that together probably until just recently, like, oh, that's right. That was what I wasn't feeling.
Yeah.
And then because I wasn't feeling, I went into controlling. And that's what started that interaction in the car.
Yeah.
I think. to
Yep.
begin with.
Yep.
And then it triggered something old that didn't have anything to do with my mom's death or her not being at the, the open house. But I am grateful that now I've worked through that and I don't have that waiting for me in the future again, the old trigger.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Beautiful. And I'm glad that you have now joined my the club of triggers are a gift.
Grudgingly.
I know. People get so mad. They're like, what is they're a gift? I'm like, they're a gift. I'm telling you, you will learn something about a part of you that's been buried for a very long time. And it is an opportunity to look at that and actually transform and bring that part into the light. And then it doesn't trigger you anymore. And it's hard to do that and to sit in it and look at it. So bravo, you did a beautiful job. Absolutely beautiful job.
Thank you. And what would have happened a year and a half or even a few years ago, before I found your podcast, before I joined the coaching program, before I understood what this work was, that moment in the car would have caused a disconnect that stood beyond the party, maybe a week, maybe a couple of weeks, while I stayed in my defensive adolescent, protecting my hurt child. And I didn't know why that was happening. And I think what we don't understand about this work sometimes, because it feels scary, is on the other side of it is freedom. And that I think is the gift of the trigger, is being free of it. If we're willing to work through the trigger, and it doesn't take as long as we think. Like with a coach, that was a 50-minute session and it didn't take the whole 50 minutes to work through it. But being free of it is such a gift.
You're using so many words that I use, and I love that you have taken those on for yourself, which is the idea that not only that working with triggers are a gift, but it creates, when you do that work, it creates freedom. It really does. That's a big deal. Gosh, so many things to unpack here. I'm not sure where I want to begin. So much. I want to first talk about, it's interesting as I listen, when I listen to people, I'm seeing the chairs. I see chairs. I'm like, okay. So you had this precious, vulnerable part of you that was feeling, I don't know if I missed that part, but from your mom's passing, I'm imagining you miss her. There's grief, there's love, there's sadness, all of those emotions coming from your child. Is there anything else that I missed? Because that's what as I'm listening to you, I'm like, oh, wow, I didn't hear that part of the story. And there's that, my heart was like, oof, heavy. But if we, excuse me, if we don't go there, and what happens is with our ego, when we're in that adolescent chair, it's like we start to feel these vulnerable emotions, and then immediately that part from the adolescent comes in and overlays it and tries to fix it, defend, push it down. And that's then when you went into your controlling place. So I'm seeing you work these chairs beautifully. So then you were in your control, defensive, picking at your husband in the car. Get me the hell out of the car, pull the car over. I'm out of here. So I'm hearing like all these different parts of you that are like coming online to take over, fix everything up for you. But buried underneath is this beautiful little part of you that's just feeling grief and pain. But I also heard, because I'm thinking about this journey. So you had these vulnerable emotions, then you went into, the fix it, defensive, pull over the car mode. But then you gave yourself space. So what I want to talk a little bit more about is you got out of the car, which I'm sure there's not one person listening to this show right now that wouldn't be able to relate. And you brought up a memory. I've done that with my husband before, like, pull my damn car over. So I totally forgot until just this second. I'm like, oh man, I did that. I did that one night driving home. It was like 1 a.m. and it was, we were like 2 streets away, but we were on getting, and he literally pulled the car over and I got out. I'm like, it's 1 a.m. or 2 a.m. I don't care. So I have a similar part. I just realized. But what happened during the walk then to this store for you? Because I saw you, I saw you, and it wasn't there. I heard you basically shift chairs
Mm-hmm.
and slide in your adult. So tell us what that's like, because so many of us can relate to what you talked about. Not the same exact thing with the graduation, but our own triggers. So what is that journey like from one chair to the next, from into the adult chair? What happened?
It was very interesting, Michelle, because I was sort of kind of in that front seat of the car, like that chair, physically, with half of me kind of hanging out the sunroof. And then I exited the car. And as soon as I was on my feet out of the car, I saw everything from my adult. And it was like, what the hell just happened? Who was that? Whoa. Okay, I'm embarrassed now. Here I am, trying to, work this program and become a coach. And it wasn't my husband who got out of the car. It was me. Okay, so that's him. Okay, so embarrassing, like we don't have time for that right now. And in my head, I'm kind of sorting through and observing all these parts that sort of, what had just happened and what's coming up. And I knew I couldn't change anything that had just happened. I knew there was a reason that would make sense. And I knew that because all of the other times that had happened, there was a way down deep reason that made sense. And it was, they're just typically old hurts.
Yep.
That don't immediately show their faces until you kind of have to, go under the water and dive down a little bit. And I saw the physical distance between myself and the store. And I just knew that's the amount of time I have to come back to myself. I don't want to be disconnected from myself. That feels terrible. I don't want to be disconnected from my spouse with this big, huge celebration happening the next day. I want us to be able to be joyful and have gratitude that we raised this beautiful, strong, independent, brilliant, wise young woman. I don't want the focus to be on some thing that happened between the two of us. She deserves the attention.
Yeah. Wow.
And I just breathed. And I think that I may not have gone straight to breathing had it not been for doing that with clients. Like, okay,
yeah,
let's just start by getting into our bodies. So
yes.
I think that's all these words to say, I somehow intuited that I need to be in my actual body and calm by the time I got to the store. And I was.
I love it. Yeah. That's beautiful. I have to say, I heard you say again, so you were walking, you slowed down. So someone that's listening, what do they do if they're triggered? I actually like that you got out of the car, as crazy as that sounds, because sometimes when we're with someone that's triggered, or I shouldn't say sometimes, probably most all the time, when you're standing with someone that you're interpreting is triggering you, right? Or they're hurting you in some way. It's like, step away, go to the bedroom, go get out of the car, go to the bathroom and just sit there for a moment and just do some deep breathing. It is about separating from that trigger, that person, that event, that experience that you're in. Because sometimes it's not even a person, it's something outside of you. It's like, you got to remove yourself so you can recenter. Because when we're triggered, we're in the adolescent chair, we are completely rocked. And that prefrontal cortex is not online. So to get that back online, so once I have the prefrontal cortex online, then I can reconnect to my higher self, and then to my true self and hear my soul. And then I go, okay, what just happened? I can center. And so to do that, move away, step away. Number one. Number two, slow your breath down. Because when we're so triggered, we're breathing so fast. What else would you say? Would you add anything just to those two first steps?
I think you're right. As soon as I was out of the car and watching it roll very slowly away,
Mm-hmm.
that's when I started to come back to myself.
Yep.
And then I knew, okay, I need to breathe.
Yep.
I don't need to know what just happened right now. I can
Nope.
figure that out later. Right
Yep.
now, all I need to do is be fully me again.
Yep.
And then go reconnect with my spouse.
Yep.
Because what happened in the car wasn't his, it was mine.
Yep.
And I knew that. And I know that now. This is new information for me from being in this program and learning your method. And that is your triggers are your work. That was a huge paradigm shift for me. So I think knowing that before this trigger happened helped me know, like, okay, I can't put this on him. This is mine. I need to own this. And I don't want this, whatever this ends up being, to continue to disrupt my life and my relationships. And I think that I've lived in that space of letting them disrupt my life and relationships for long enough that I just don't want to live that way anymore.
Ooh, that's big. So you made the choice. And that when we're in our adult chair, here's the thing. We remember that life is a choice and everything in life is a choice. And we get to choose, do I want to stay in victim seat or do I want to reach over and be in my empowerment seat? And the empowerment seat is in that adult chair. And it burns. Like the ego is going to be like, I can't believe you're going to let him get away with that. And I can't believe he was micromanaging. And it's like, but we rise above, right? There's this feeling of like, wait a minute. What happens is our perspective when we're triggered shrinks way down. And I use this example. It's like we're looking through a paper towel holder, right? Or the little cardboard thing. That's our perspective. It's tiny. But what we want to do is bring that perspective, broaden your perspective. And then you have all these different choices and options that you didn't have when your perspective shrunk. So let me ask you this. I think you just said you would not have acted this, you would not have responded or reacted in the same way even a year ago. But then you made the decision again, which was huge, Angela, to walk up to him or when you bumped into him in the aisle. And you did a few things that again make me, Mama Bear is really proud. I got to tell you, to hear you what you did here. I'm going to say you took responsibility and something new to the adult chair, the 5 pillars. And the 5 pillars are what we want to practice every single day in order to maintain living in the adult chair. So one of the pillars, is we take responsibility. We own our reality. These are big things. You did that. And you didn't step up to him and say, hey, honey, I'm really sorry. I love what you said. I'm really sorry. And, I blah, 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 whatever. Tell us again, what were the words that you used when you went up to him?
I said, something happened in the car. I don't know what it was. I will figure it out. But I am so sorry.
Yep.
That I disconnected us, basically. I don't want to be disconnected from you for even 5 more minutes.
Yep.
And if I can, we have a big love. When I was standing there in that, paper plate, plastic silverware aisle, I knew that he would get to me. I knew he would come down that aisle. He was not going to skip that aisle because I was in it. I knew he would come. I was very aware of him. And I'm really proud of us that I did just say, hey, that was me. I don't know why, but I will figure it out. And I don't want to be disconnected from you. I want to feel close to you. I don't want to feel estranged or hurt. And I'm really proud of him that having that space, he took that space and he said, boy, he didn't really know what had happened either. But he apologized for whatever he thought his role was in it. I'm so sorry I got loud and you had to leave the car. Like, that was your option.
Yeah. Beautiful.
He's pretty great. Yeah.
Beautiful.
And deals with a lot of micromanaging. I need to say that is something I'm actively working on.
Good. But you're aware of it. Now you can work on it. So you have a part of you that's a micromanager.
Well, we are both firstborns. We both have that part, but mine is bigger.
Yeah, I hear you. I'm firstborn too. I feel that. The micromanaging. Yeah. Beautiful. Took responsibility. You apologized, and then he apologized back to you, and then it's over.
It was done.
It's done. And in the adult, we live in the moment. We don't drag things from the past into the moment. And you didn't leave there again and say, gosh, remember when you said that to me in the car? That was really hurtful. It's like you had the conversation in that store and it was done. I love that. And then again, to follow up, I love what you also said, which is that's something I said a lot. I know in the last live event we did back in April. I don't want anyone to ever, what am I going to say?
Disconnect me from myself.
Yep. Never. Because here's the thing is that when I'm connected to myself, I am aware, I am intuitive, my gut feelings are spot on. I am connected to something much bigger than me. I'm going to start out with my heart, which I want to be always connected to my heart, which is connected to my higher self, my God, source, universe, whatever you'd like to call it. And when we are triggered or in a bad mood or sitting in victim or all of these things, those things are disconnecting me from myself. And I don't want anything or anybody to ever to disconnect me from that, from myself, excuse me. So, and that again, it goes back to what you were saying or what we talked about a second ago. It's a choice. I've got to choose. Do I want to be disconnected or not? And you rose above and said, I'm not going to disconnect not only from myself, but this is my man. And you've also added to that, and I don't want anything to disconnect us from each other. So that's so freaking beautiful. I love this. Really, really, really powerful. So for those of you listening, I think you've got it. When you're triggered, you want to take a moment, step aside, slow down, do some breathing. I'm going to add to that. I think that you did this. Tell me if this is true, if this is fact or not, but you look for what's fact and truth. It's like, wait a minute. Hold on a second. I just got out of the car. We were fighting. I was micromanaging. Yes, he was too. It seems like you kind of went through this fact and truth thing. And then you got to sit in it. And then again, and I like that you cleaned up the trigger with him. And then at a later time, you said the next day or later that day or something, then you worked the trigger. Yeah. You don't always have to work the trigger in the moment. You can work the trigger at a later time. But do work on it sooner than later because it's fresh, right? We want to work on it sooner than later. And then you're able to call somebody and get right in. But you can even work on the trigger alone by sitting down, getting into your body and asking yourself, what am I feeling? What is coming up for me right now? This is mine. What is it? Because what we do as humans is we go, they made me feel that way. They did this to me. No. This is mine. What is it that I'm feeling right now? And we got to go way down deep and dig. And when you can find that root, that's then the release of the trigger. That's the release of the trigger. So
here's how I describe it to clients. And it works best with clients who are Gen Xers because it's an Atari reference. But do you remember?
I know. I loved Atari. Right? Yes, I know.
Do you remember the game Missile Command?
Yes.
And it's where those little things come down and you have to move your little cursor to protect the bottom.
Yep.
Those little lightning strikes that come down, those are the triggers. They only hurt if you have that little wound or that something that can be destroyed down there.
Yep.
And what's cool is the lightning strike and what happened and some of the details and getting back into that feeling and then getting below chin and finding out what's really happening, what's unconsciously happening. What have we been storing on that low level all this time in this missile command game? That lightning strike shows us where it came in and where it hit. And those are two critical pieces of information that help you figure out how to dismantle that belief that's down there at the core that is not true, that our unconscious bodies and minds have been holding on to. And dismantling that, that's the freedom, because now things can come through your, the universe or the enemy or whatever can shoot all kinds of things down through you, and there's nothing to destroy there. It does no damage. It only does damage if we have that belief, that thing that can be destroyed there. And that is the gift of the trigger. It shows you where that is. It shows you how it came in. And then the work lets you go find what that is, reprogram it, reparent that part, and then be free of the pain that comes with that activation. And that is a miracle. It's a gift. It's beauty. It's magnificent to watch as a coach. It's a sacred feeling to experience as a human being doing the actual work. And I'm just wild for it.
Oh, I love that.
It's not easy. Brave but determined, or brave but terrified. Terrified but brave. Those kind of are the qualities it takes to be willing to dive into some of that. You have to get to the point where you don't want to keep living having just those kind of targets where things can strike down. And then this work is, okay, well, I'll just go remove that target. And it takes less time than we think. We spend so much time avoiding doing the work, and the work doesn't take as long as we think. You can do a lot in a 15-minute session. It's wild.
Agree with everything you just said. Yep. I want to be like, yep, check, yep. That's such a good point. I've often seen our triggers as like landmines in the front yard.
Right.
And the more we work on these triggers, the more the landmines they're gone. Like they're taken out, they're removed. So you can actually walk to your mailbox and
or play in the yard with your kid, right?
Yeah,
just
like you can the triggers, and I don't remember if I said this when we were talking or not, pre-show or on air, but I mean, my goodness, in my 20s, I was like ding, 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 like triggered all my moods were up and down and up and down and up and down and up and down and up and down. But I was triggered over everything. And we were talking about this pre-show. But what I realized is now, over the years, working on triggers for so many years, it doesn't, like you said, it does not take long. I love that you said that, because I agree. Once you learn how to work the triggers, then you can go in and grab them. And yes, sometimes even I have to call someone. There are times when I do that, but most of the time I can just jump in on my own, work our triggers and work my triggers, and moving on. So life really does get easy. And something else that you said, which I say all the time, and I can't agree enough about this, it creates freedom. This is freedom. Freedom is not a quick little pill. It does take a little bit of work, but it's long lasting. This is not a Band-Aid approach. This is like you're doing work, getting in there in that wound, and boom, moving on, and you're done. Done. Yeah. So,
and you don't get beautiful. Activated the same way after you do that work.
Yeah.
And that's the miracle.
So
that
true.
Feels like the miracle.
It is. I agree. Beautiful. Is there anything else that we might have missed, or you feel complete about all this?
Well, something else, there are people listening who think that like just working with our parts and working with our pain is scary. I was there. I've been there multiple. I can think of sessions that you saw where I was terrified.
Yeah.
But I was still there. And one thing I've learned as a coach with my own clients, listening to you, is that those parts are all there to protect us. They are there to keep safe. They are doing what they think is the right thing. And in my mind, it's kind of like if you go back to Home Alone, the movie, where there are the stories of old man Marley who lives next door with, he's got body parts in that barrel that he carries around. No, he's just out salting the sidewalks. He looks scary, and the stories about him make him sound scary. But when Kevin sits down to talk to him, he's an old man who wants relationship and is doing the best he can. And he becomes a lot less scary. And our parts are kind of like that old man. Yeah. We feel a lot of fear. We want to run. We want to tell stories about why we shouldn't go near that part. But when we take the time and make the effort to step in, they are never there to hurt us. They have always been trying to protect us. And it's one thing to be able to say that. I don't think anyone hearing this will immediately jump to, oh yes, this work is scary. But I think people who actually, do the work will eventually see that, oh yeah, these parts of me that I've been hating or pushing away, like they weren't there trying to wreck my life. They were trying to keep me safe. It was just an outdated way that wasn't working anymore.
So true. Beautifully said. Thank you for that. I keep thinking about someone that might even be, let's say, when we all do this, some of us more than others, but people might say like, well, what do you mean? Like if so-and-so's in their victim, how is that protecting them? It's like, no. I know when I'm in my victim, I get a lot of attention. And so it's like, I'm getting something, I'm getting a need met. It's just not the healthiest way to do it. So I love what you said, like our parts really, their intentions are so good. So even our victim part, I'm just giving that one of many, many examples I could use. But because people say, well, how is that a good thing when they're so angry at me? That anger is keeping them safe, because when so-and-so gets really angry, that anger pushes other people away. And that's their form of a boundary, not the healthiest version, but it is a boundary. But when we work with that part and we let it know, hey, there's another way, like a healthy boundary. Oh, and then we educate it, we transform, and it's more freedom. So beautifully said. Thank you. Those are some great, great points. All right, my love, where would people find you in case someone wants to learn more about who you are, what you do, your coaching, all the things?
Well, yes, my website is openhandscoaching.com. Or people could find me by going to your website and looking at the Find Attack Coach page. My name is Angela Johnson, and I offer a 30-minute free initial mini session if people are looking for, boy, I've heard about this work, but what is it? Can do some work in 30 minutes with this method. See if it's right for you. And then I have a coupon code that will be $25 off a session. It's Trigger, TRIGGER. And I will keep that good for all of 2023 and all of 2024.
Well, thank you for that. That's amazing. Thank you. Thank you.
I believe in this work. Believe in this work in my own life and in what I've seen with my clients.
Thank you so much.
Beautiful.
We will put all of that in the show notes for sure. Thank you for that. We appreciate you giving people a chance to even try a session with you. And your sessions are amazing. So jump on it, everybody. All right, my love. Thanks for being here with us today.
Thank you so much, Michelle.
I hope that you all enjoyed that show and you feel ready to take on your own trigger and go find out why it's a gift. You will find when you get to that source of that trigger, let me tell you something, you're going to be like, wow, what a relief. I promise you, it is true freedom. All right, that's all I've got for you guys today. Remember, if you would like some help getting to the root of your triggers, head on over to theadultchair.com/coaches, and you will be able to pick from one of our amazing adult chair coaches, and they will be able to help you find your own trigger. All right, you guys. I will see you next week, seated right here in the adult chair.